Okay, so here we are. I haven't set up the new month yet, but about to enter August 1941. What's happened recently? Well, after a bunch of stuff that was ahistorical, some of it due to mistakes, some of it otherwise, we got to a position where the Axis was holding a river line here, and it built up some defenses along here. And despite the expense and everything, I had second thoughts. I said, that's not where I belong. I want to hold the river line all the way down to Helwan. I'm thinking Aswan. I was like, wait, is there a Helwan Dam? No. Well, that's important because I will have every major bridge covered, if that's the case. And these ferries are just not very easy to conduct a military operation across. It's conceivable the Commonwealth could do one from here. I guess, I don't know. Because they could be in supply, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, if they get the headquarters here, they could have this in supply. And then they could start shifting supplies physically across the river using the ferry. But that does not sound pleasant. There is no capability to attack across these. It would be possible to simply cross them, but then you're pretty much out of supply, and that ain't no good. So, anyway, after a couple of bad weather turns and other problems that got in the Axis's way in terms of advancing into position here, they decided to make the move. And this feels like the turn the Brits have to try to cross. They don't have their headquarters yet, but this looks like a weak stack. I just feel like I have to make some kind of attempt to prevent myself from getting bottled up. Because if I get bottled up there and can't make it across, I begin to think that it's time to call the game. There's no way the Axis is going to make it across the Nile, but, you know, whatever happens is not going to be impacted. There's no way that is this the 8th Army yet? I don't know. The Commonwealth forces are going to cross in an opposed fashion successfully until much, much later than they historically broke the Al Alamein line. So whatever the game would do, we could pretty much call it at that point. It would be just a long, long slog of supplies transiting and nothing really happening. On the British positive side, there's not a lot of air power down here. I threw some in at the end, and that air power is not going to help down here. So, British planes can be used. Now, the other issue, there's not a whole hell of a lot of British air power there either. And also, if we get a turn flip, if the Axis gets control of the initiative, they can solidify their position that they moved into rapidly and prevent the Commonwealth from being able to make an essentially unopposed cross. Not unopposed, but weaker opposed than they're going to see very soon. I had to put units on their mobile side to get them into position there. That they will change out of mobile, thereby doubling their strength capability. They'll build hedgehogs, and yeah, that's going to look like a nasty old butt plug there. The only thing it's not going to have is the air support that it needs. I'll have to get a unit there to start building an air base to improve that, and I'll also be shifting some of this artillery that I had committed. Now I've got, did I just gather it all there? How weird of me. Anyway, that's what we're looking at. So this is kind of Britain's last chance to get a breakout, I think, in across the Nile. Yeah, here it is, Tuesday morning, pretty day. Unfortunately, I said morning. My back has people working down there. I think whatever electrical stuff they were doing has to do with the road work they're doing as well. Like they were probably preparing or something. I don't know what they were doing. But yeah, my back's woke me up several times already. Like I've tried to fall asleep 3 times or something. And, you know, I snooze for about an hour and then the pain gets to me or whatever, which kind of sucks. Not enough that I take painkillers, but yeah. But yeah, I went for a nice walk yesterday. Anyway, which maybe aggravated my back as well. Like, it's so hard to tell what's what. But as I work through the August turn, I notice an issue, and I have to get something in 29 there, which is, let's put that on 1. It's only 1 unit that's being removed. The Polish units are released from their restriction zone. I've already released them. That wouldn't have happened if I hadn't, you know, lost the territory that they were sitting in. I don't feel terribly, like other units could have taken their place, but for whatever reason I chose to put them over here in the Nile. I don't feel any regrets for having released them for that. So I'm just going to ignore that. And although reinforcement phase normally takes place in the player turn, well, for the Brits largely, I put their forces up there, including any indications of stuff that has to be withdrawn. But for the Axis, it's almost entirely these, hey, you get this all at the beginning of the month, and that's it. Well, there's some changes. First of all, there's a uniformed in Tripoli. No big deal if that's put on the board early at all. That has no effect on play. Good enough. I had an exchange that has essentially no effect. It ended up being a unit I had already killed, but this is the kind of micromanagement that I do not like. 353 Motorcycle Battalion, 15th KRD, moves from the 15th Panzer to the same unit, but now it's switched over to be part of the 5th LE. Here what you've got is actually an indication of there are units that are more flexible than the game makes them seem. And so what if I had this fucker deployed, right? Now and had them in significantly different places. 15th Panzer is here, 5th LE, some of it is down here, yeah, is all the way down here. Basically what I'm just saying is, yeah, regardless of the actual reasons that that redeployment was made, and regardless of any kind of flexibility that Rommel actually felt, what I would have to do is now have that unit be a part of this unit and commit it down to there. That's kind of bullshit, right? Like, Rommel had his reasons, I'm sure, for reassigning you know, a specific battalion from one unit to another, from one division to another. And they had to do with what those divisions needed. And instead, you should just have a little bit of flexibility in terms of, I don't know what, you know, like that should be an independent unit, and you should be able to fuel up and use organic trucks to a limited extent, not to the extent you're allowed to in most OCS games, but to a limited extent for these units. And just say that and say it's a non-divisional unit and allow it, you know, more flexibility for what organic trucks it's allowed to use. But make that more general, right? Like, be like, you can fuel up or you can use organic trucks for 1 or 2 maybe units that are independent. Maybe make them have to be the same nationality or something. I don't know. But this exchange is just like crazy micromanagement that historically is accurate. It was done, but it was done for reasons that may not apply in a particular game. And I would rather have a little bit more flexibility in how I align my forces if I'm allowed to redeploy something like that. Or maybe allow it to be commanded by either unit at any time during the game or something. I just don't know. Anyway, we continue on. We had 3 artillery battalions removed. Now, one of them was up here at the front. Fine. 2 of them were en route on the long walk. Obviously, I could have brought them closer. Boy, would I be pissed if I had spent fuel to move them. And in fact, I'm kind of pissed that I spent fuel to move them out of Tripoli to begin with, right? Because they couldn't make it. But I would have been really pissed if I had spent, say, 2 or 3 turns of fuel to get them to the front lines, and now they got removed. That's like, what the hell? These are units that barely could do anything at all, right? And I can show you, here are the 3. One of them was this 933, and one of them was one of the 2 433s. It's just a matter of like, it's hard to imagine what possible use these units could have had. Now, maybe historically, Rommel did rush them to the front, and maybe like the fact that they were rushed to the front by vehicle is why they're being removed. Like, it feels pretty weird that, I don't know. It's like I'd have to expend extra energy. Now, they would have gotten there earlier. Not that I have the supplies for all that artillery that I have anyway, and maybe I didn't lose as much Italian artillery as I'm supposed to. They're decent artillery units, but they can't make it. They can't make it to the front by foot walking, and had I driven them there, I would have wasted resources just to remove them. Now, if they're getting evacuated and pulled back to Europe because they're needed there, I don't know. I mean, it's like these units shouldn't even be on the map, right? Anyway, that gets us to the beginning of August. I've done that. I don't have a Fliegen Corps that I can assign. I don't remember. I know the Fliegen Corps, I think it's winter. But it may be an event. Yeah, I think it's an event that fires it off to make it available again because it can't fly in Russia, and it's like, well, might as well send it to the Med, to support the power there. Anyway, I think that's it. I was going to play a turn, but then I realized I hadn't gone through the setup phase yet. So, well, now we did something that's a little bit more intensive than a turn when it comes down to it. I do have to remember, beginning of a new month, pay attention to particularly, this is important, which means we're going to a 4-2, somewhat more shipping, which is a big deal because we got a whole bunch of units here. Like I said, I lost like 5 supply there. I don't know if it affects anything here. This doesn't change until 42. I don't think those change. It will mean that I'm rolling on a different table here, right? No. This is still, and this is kind of an exciting time because stuff can go anywhere at this point. It's kind of funny. You could conceivably lose those units you sent to Sudan. Like, there were 2 turns where stuff was being sent, I don't know, say, I don't know, like 3/12 or something. What the fuck are they doing down there? Like that's like a water thing. I don't know, dirt and water and all that. But anyway, there was a reasonable chance of stuff coming out of here. It's slightly higher here, but it's only 1 month. This is 2 months. So I think it's quite possible that you could like have some stuff that was forced to be committed that you did not get released. Now, one thing is, whatever was released, the organic truck, if nothing else is left, I think you're able to pull that out automatically for free. Which is kind of cool because it comes with a supply. But it kind of sucks because they're useless. But anyway, yeah. I'm reflecting on the situation in my head more than anything else. Brought some new planes in. I ended up screwing around with where my planes are. Honestly, they're all actually, I think, probably in here right now. But I just fudged and cheated. I've got too many planes right now for the Axis. Like there's a plane here that I'm just like, I got nowhere to put it that it can operate freely. But yeah. Problem is I'm not actually sleepy. I was kind of before I came here, but now playing I'm kind of engaged and a little excited, but I don't trust my capability of handling what may be the biggest turn of the game so far. I mean, probably not, but it may be the biggest turn of the game going forward. There may have been a more important turn, like when I discovered, gee, my defenses didn't work elsewhere, which is why I moved to here. Because I know these will work if I get them secured, but I don't know that this would work because I kept failing to defend lines elsewhere that I thought I should be able to. Yeah, so it's like, well, do I want to take a chance of fucking everything up because I'm potentially kind of sleepy? I don't know. I actually think the Brits are going to be able to make it across. The Axis, yeah, a lot of it comes down to who wins the initiative. Because whoever wins the initiative is going to take the next action. If it's the Brits, they want to try to force their crossing. If it's the Axis, they want to fortify. And that may be the differential because it's not just building the hedgehog, but it's actually additional troops moving into place. So it is a pretty pivotal turn. You know, it turns out I'm in too much pain to avoid, to delay. Looks like they're packing up. I'm not absolutely sure. They're fucking around with the sign, which is usually a sign that they're going somewhere, but I also think that they moved the truck to do some, I don't know, they're putting stuff away, I think. I don't know. Anyway, not really my problem, but hey, you know, I'm always, see, that's like a log that they just threw in there. I think they're pulling away with that, but there's other truck up there. Okay, so there was no event. There was weather, sandstorms on maps B and C. That's not going to impact the issue. And then the Axis got the key initiative roll, and they are going to seize the turn. That may be a serious problem. The Axis is getting more troops in. Like, if I take a look, let's take a look at the 2 counter trays. There's a hell of a lot of stuff here. Now, some of these are replacements and whatnot. There's a fair amount of Commonwealth stuff, too. And I don't really know, you know, what the flow is like. I expected more Commonwealth troops to be coming in later in the game than I'm seeing when I compare the 2 trays. But again, some of it may be replacement units. Some of those may be better units. They may be worse. To be honest, the commanders in the field don't know a hell of a lot about what they're going to get, especially in the long term. And in the near term, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get too much more. You know, I'm not going to get boatloads more than I'm getting right now. So yeah, the fact that the Axis got the initiative here and is able to build this up, maybe build up my air base, it's going to cost me a lot of supplies, but I think I've got the Commonwealth bottled up after that. Well, the Axis does what it can to bottle these up, bring air power in, building up air base, whatever. The sandstorm, a little bit of an annoyance. What it really means is that I sent my trucks all the way to Tripoli. I have not done my shipping yet, and I actually have a fair amount of it. So stuff is going to start coming in up at Mersa Matruh and to Tobruk, that area in there. So my feeling was for the Brits, hey, you got to bust through. It's now or never. But I actually have options. More options than I thought I did. Let's take a look at the terrain effect. So attacking across the river. Boo, 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 boo. Ranges from a half to a quarter the strength. Okay. It's going to be other terrain, so it's going to be open terrain where I attack. If I could get a big enough force in play and enough firepower, it would work. And maybe it would be worth the attack. But like I said, I have other options. If I have a large enough amount of force, I can drive down to here. Now remember, I was saying, hey, you can't really use the fords to launch an attack, but that's not entirely true. I could drive down to here. I could ford the river with the ferry. And I could do that way down here if I so desire. And then, because the road marches along the river line, I can fly across the river. Because remember, close enough is good enough, even through impassable terrain. So I can be like, you know, shoving supplies across the Nile with no big deal there. And this does not bother me one bit. In order to, you know, conduct my attacks without having to breach the river. So yeah, I think the Commonwealth just says screw it. You know, maybe if I hadn't been facing those barriers of the hedgehogs, but right now I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't know. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I could supply down to here without even having a headquarters and force my way up and, you know, then force the battle upward. But I actually don't feel like I'm in a position where I necessarily want to launch attacks. What I want to do is I want to make sure that this Helwan defenses are strong enough. I don't know that they are. The Axis didn't attack, but they might. And we had a withdrawal, by the way. Another South African sent to the Mideast now, which is not pleasant. But other than that, yeah, let's just continue delaying the game. Yeah, I shift my deployment a little bit, so I've got more force there. I start collecting supplies back here, just in case Cairo like becomes a bloodbath. I want to have some supplies behind it as well, because, you know, if somehow I lose this, I'm in real trouble right now. I would still be in real trouble, but I might as well start stockpiling supplies there. That looks like it's really out of reach of the Axis, even if they fuck around with the river crossings and whatnot. It's just too far away. I also sent the SAS down here to provide a potential threat. I don't know what they can do. They're very fast moving. I could hit something like the headquarters here, but that headquarters isn't actually important. I don't know why it's there. It was kind of a, hey, I might need supplies down there in order to, in order to reach further down or something. Maybe DAK is covering me enough, but what if I get kind of cut off or something? This might be useful. I'm going to have to truck supplies closer because of that. Like here or closer to Cairo. And I probably don't want a hell of a lot of supplies down there. They're harder to get there, and they hurt, they cost me more. They cost me more to get there. And they're also a little bit more exposed. Like if things do collapse, they would be far more exposed than the ones back here that are supplying the DAK headquarters. Right now the DAK headquarters is sufficient, but I want this guy in place. I don't know why. I didn't want to move the DAK forward because then it wouldn't have access to these. The Italian headquarters back here doesn't do me as much as DAK back there does. DAK back there allows me to get these resources all the way, to the very edge of where I am. And I think it's like really close, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, maybe not that close. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, I'd be able to get down to wasted. So yeah, maybe not that close. And I really don't know why I spent the fuel for that Italian guy to come down there, but I did. He's at risk now, and that's that. Put this stuff at the gas haul station, and yeah. Take a break for a while. After pissing around and wasting time, sleep is not coming to me. I'm amazed at how much time I just wasted. It was like 3 hours or something. I don't know what the fuck I was doing. Watched some videos, played a little raid, whatever. Jesus, I don't know where the time goes. But anyway, like I tried to sleep a little bit, not very well. Anyhow, weather clears up. Let's get these back where they belong. No event, an actual no event, not like, one that couldn't happen, which is what most of the no events really are. Initiative goes to the Axis yet again. They decide to flip the script and allow the Commonwealth to go first because we're entrenched. There's not really a hell of a lot left for us to do. Now, one of the things when I play one of these games, so the fact that the Brits came up with an answer that didn't involve just plowing into the Axis, that was kind of a surprise to me. Right? Like I thought I had figured this out, but looking at it a different day from a different point of view, and that's what's kind of nice about the flip-flops on the turn sides, is that actually has an impact on how I think and what I understand about a given strategies, etc. The question though is, what does the Axis feel? Now there is this telegraph of the SAS unit there, but I'm not that worried about it. But are they really aware of what I came up with for the Commonwealth? Part of me is saying they're probably saying, look, you want to concede? It's over, right? Because that's how I thought things were. But obviously, Commonwealth's not going to concede. They still think they have a chance of rolling back the Axis, and that the Axis are maybe overextended in a way that it'll be easier to take them. They probably aren't going to point out why they think they can win, although sometimes you'll see people like, oh, come on, you don't have a fucking chance. And you're kind of forced into, no, I do, it's because of this, but whatever. Sometimes people are able to keep their mouth quiet on that and just say, no, well, I think I do. I'm not playing just because I want to push pieces around. I actually think that I have a chance of doing well still. But anyway, we'll see what develops. But again, the Brits are going to have to get themselves a headquarters, I think, to be able to operate properly. It's kind of interesting because they could put the headquarters across the river and then have like full supply on the other side of the river, as opposed to this little, I mean, they kind of have it anyway, right? Like, I can trace to here, therefore, I can trace anywhere along the river line, so anything on the river line is fine. But once I get a headquarters across, I can start threatening flanking maneuvers and whatnot. Another infantry brigade dispatched, this time to the far east. I mean, look at what we're losing here. We can't afford an offensive. I also noted, hey, I forgot something. These guys I did not move up this month. There's just so many things that happen each month, at the beginning of the month. I thought I had them all down. Pretty sure I missed that one. So the turn ends up kind of a big nothing burger. I did get a couple of replacement points for the Italians, and I spent the shipping to get them there. So they're in there. I don't know the order. I could rebuild them in either location, so it doesn't really make a difference. Interesting factor here, a motorcycle battalion and a pioneer battalion, for that matter, both only take 1 manpower. Both are very good units, so that's kind of cool. I got both an Italian and a German manpower. I'm throwing a machine gun battalion, what the hell. You can see a large flow of troops going in. Again, I mean, it's not impossible that I could do the same kind of trick along the railway, say, walking there. Because again, that's along the river line and I control this road. I'm going to have to roll a die to see if and when the Axis start to realize that. Because I just feel like it's the Allies who came to the decision that, yeah. One of the problems is that doesn't buy me that much, right? If we take a look, I'm in the corner here, river line crossing both ways. Yeah, sure, I could threaten this artillery piece or whatever, but I can't really. I'd be operating out of supply to do that. So what the British have the capability of doing is sliding up here and attacking a location that's right along the river line. Do the Axis have the same opportunity? Sure, they could do that at Cairo. Conceivably, if they forced this, they could do it at Helwan. It would be better than crossing the river. But those are still fortified locations, and I've kind of decided I didn't have the forces yet to do it. But I do have a lot of forces coming in. And elsewhere, what about over here? Yeah, there's just, here I'd be crossing the Nile, so it's actually impossible to attack. Here it would be possible, but again, it would be crossing the Nile to hit the artillery there. So I think there's a lot less opportunity for the Axis to come across. And I think that's part of why they're not really realizing maybe what the threat is in terms of this. At least that's how I'm going to word it. Because a lot of what happens in a war game is really a matter of, map's not being aligned. Yeah, they're still not aligned, and I'm disaligning more important map sheets by shifting that one. Yeah. It's the tables moving around. I would have, like, there are options. Somebody suggested certain kinds of, essentially cardstock going underneath that would help. But it would have to be positioned in such a way that I've got it under the cracks to hold solid. And I still think that the shifting of the tables would cause some issues. It probably wouldn't be as bad. But anyway, it's just a life when you're facing these big guys. And will this stay? Because if it will, I can switch to a different location. It's not right. So why am I sticking it? But yeah, and I think, like, if I had these under a piece of plexi, it would be a worse situation because it would be a lot harder to fix because the counters would be on top of the plexi, right? Not that I would ever have a piece this big, so yeah. But, you know, I could probably do it with like 3 big pieces or something and leave parts of the map unplexied because they're just not that important. But I still think what's underneath would end up shifting. Yeah, a big part, what I was trying to say, a big part in terms of war games is often the different perceptions that the players have in terms of how well am I doing, what can I get away with, whatever. And one of the problems with playing solo is usually both sides have a pretty equal view of what the situation is. So I do like to kind of try to simulate that disparity when I get an opportunity that seems clear to do so, and I feel like what happened here kind of points to that, so I'm kind of running with it. That the Axis is a lot less concerned and understanding about the threat of a crossing of the Nile, and part of that is it wouldn't do much for them. They've probably assessed that, but they probably haven't really, in that kind of mindset where you're focusing on your own pieces, you end up not really realizing, yeah, it doesn't look possible for me, but it's a different matter for my opponent. Here's a shitter. No weather. Brit's got initiative. Not sure what I'm doing with it. But the event, Churchill decides to be an asshole. He's insisting that I attack. Now, that foils my plan. I can't go around, right? Because it costs how many movement points to do so? Ferry costs all, or half for leg units. Now, leg units are going to be moving. I mean, the best one. Okay, all right. I can do an attack. I can send the special forces to make an attack. I have to make 2 though. I may have another special forces unit around. Those can actually run out and make a couple of stupid attacks. They also don't actually have to make attacks. Capturing an airfield is good enough, or a port. So it's like, yeah. But I'm basically going to be sacrificing a couple of my long-range raiders to make Churchill happy, rather than... Because the other option is it's going to be all my movement points. Well, that means I have to position myself here, cross over. Yeah, that telegraphs your move. That's one of the other reasons that the Axis can't really do it. They position into one of these, and it's like, yeah, okay, I'll defend. That's fine. And then I think you can't even cross. But I'm not so sure that the Axis would come here. So... Ferry does not affect combat. Let's look at the river. Major river Suez Canal has these, but the Nile you can't attack across. Wow. So I actually can't even make the attacks across here that I was thinking about. Up here was different. This isn't the Nile. That's just a major river. It's a canal. But once you get down to here, you're looking at the Nile running there. And that is actually uncrossable for an attack. So whatever I do to position, I could actually be denied the ability to attack except right across these rivers if I'm not careful. Luckily for me, these guys are huge foot movement. So yeah, I can just sacrifice them and do something. I think given that, 15, 16, 17. Given that, if the Germans cover this, I would be able to make an attack into there, presumably. And so that's kind of cool, I guess. But yeah, I think that my Commonwealth is mistaken about the opportunities for a crossing here and a major attack. And maybe the game is over the way that the Axis thinks it is. You know, it's kind of funny. It's like, I've got these impressions, and one of them's right, one of them's wrong, but I'm not sure which one. And it may actually just be that, I wasn't taking into account the fact that the Nile River, you can't attack across it. So yeah, go set up. You can send your raider across, whatever. But set up your army so that it's ready to cross, and we'll see what happens, okay? I forgot to mention the nice weather brings the children out to the park. And they make noise. That's fine, whatever. They also come to my, to within, like, close to my bedroom window, which is a little more weird, but other people do it too. It just weirds me out when I see somebody moving around out there. But today they were molesting the deer, and that really kind of bothers me. When you force the deer to run, and I know they do it on their own and everything, but when you force them to run through the uneven terrain, they can get hurt. I know there's one with a lame leg here. Anyway, I'll get back to playing. I think I'm going to force the Axis to go first, and we'll just see what ends up happening. To the other thinking I'm having, I feel like I'm invulnerable back here. He's not going to hit me. I just don't feel like the Axis is aware of the fact that they're threatened here. This unit will have a combat strength of 0. What does that mean? I think it means it goes to the maximal column on the chart. It's not like an automatic destroyer or anything like that. It doesn't say that. And because it will be higher than that maximal column. And then if there's any shifts or whatever, they happen. So I actually am risking, without really intending to, a nice armored unit to the possibility that, like, the SAS goes in and just wrecks it. And yeah, it's the kind of thing that could happen in an opposed game very easily. Again, it's not the kind of thing that is likely to happen in a solo game. The question is, will I notice it? I'll probably roll a die. Well, no, it's too fucking late at this point. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, let me roll a die. Odds I notice the problem, because if I put him with anybody else, this guy's got to move somewhere. Put him with these artillery. Even just with some artillery, at least he has a defensive factor, which, makes this like a 1-to-1 attack at best. Yeah, we noticed. We'll keep this back. There's absolutely no reason for us not to have that back, because if I'm going to activate him for further movement, well, no, he's a foot unit. Yeah, I don't know. The extra distance is useful, but I'm going to say I did notice the problem. This is the kind of thing that I like to use die rolls for. I don't know why I wasn't using one, but it's kind of like, if this wasn't the top unit, if it was like a force there, well, then I'd be worried about a whole invasion. But I am a little worried about what that SAS unit is. I can look at that and pretend that I have enough awareness of the game to know that its other side is really fucking scary, because this side would come across and have 4 movement points, and it wouldn't be able to do anything. But that other side is really, really frightening. And Churchill's ordered an attack. That SAS is going to do something. I don't like the way the attacks are coming through. So, look, maybe the Axis would be aware that there's orders for an attack. Maybe they wouldn't. Probably has a fair amount of information just based on disposition. Okay, there's intercepts and whatnot. But is the Axis always aware every time that the Commonwealth's going to launch an attack? Or might the country with the better, code-breaking technologies actually manage to get the information through secretly and end up in a situation where, yeah, that attack wasn't expected. It doesn't. What's happening, and beyond the fact that, look, both the Axis is completely aware that the attack's going to happen, but also the Commonwealth's not aware it's going to happen until until the exact point where it has to happen. There's no opportunity to prepare for an attack or anything like that. I think a much better solution for this would be if you were like drawing a card and you got one and it said, yeah, you have to attack or whatever. There's a fair amount of the events that I don't feel like both players should necessarily know. This particular one is an important one, where I feel like it's really unlikely that the Commonwealth wouldn't have at least a week's warning, probably a month, before they realize, yeah, Churchill is really insisting. And, it wasn't like, today is Tuesday, isn't it? Yes. On Thursday, you must attack, right? That's what it's coming across. The political pressure for the attacks that Churchill demanded built up over time. And it kind of became you will lose your command if you don't attack pretty damn soon. But it wasn't like, yep, Churchill's on the phone. We're using phones. But, he sent a letter by mail, by airmail to you, and you open it up and it's like, attack on Thursday. And I'm like, oh, fuck, it's Wednesday. Dude. And if it was going to be that risky in terms of the timing and whatnot, and Churchill wouldn't accept that and would fire you for it, there might be one that says attack on Thursday and it came in on Friday, and then you're just screwed. Oh, it didn't come in and done. Yeah, screw you, man. I'm not taking your excuses. You should have anticipated the need. I don't know. Yeah, I still have the trucks to move for the Axis. I'm dragging my heels because I don't want to make an attack. That raises the great question. Do you even like war games, dude? What do you mean you don't like to attack? Some of it is I have to, I've lost my familiarity with doing combat, right? I've gotten so used to shipping and paying attention to the charts and all that. That's where my brain is now. It's gone from trying to deal with strategy and combat for the most part. And now I've got to switch gears completely from what I'm kind of comfortable with and familiar with. Just as an explanation, I don't mind attacking all the time. Yes, I favor not doing so. I'd prefer to defend. I forced the Italians to go first, or the Axis to go first. I got to use my artillery, and it did basically nothing. I got it disordered, but that goes away. But then Churchill deigned to give me some South Africans from the Near East. He could have taken a damaged unit, but I'd rather take a full unit that can't be replaced. But and I also got another South African brigade and an organic truck from the reinforcements. So that'll help me, I guess, a little bit, sort of, kind of. I don't know. I can't place them yet, but that's fine. And then I will, I guess, start looking up roles and figuring out how I'm going to conduct this, and also look for, because I think I have another commando unit available. But I can only pull this off with commandos once, as far as I can tell, because if I use them, I'm probably going to lose them somewhere. There they are, right at the top of the stack. How about that? The best I can do is the guy who is here slides up and attacks the headquarters. This other guy's going to attack the artillery. They're both at low odds, like 1 to 2. But worse than that, I hit my supply phase first, and they're no longer in trace supply, I think. I gotta check and make sure. This rail net is not useful to me. It's controlled. Back here would be, but I'm not able to get trace back there. Actually, I don't even think this would be. From here, see, like this is the only hex I can do. So I would have to be that close to be able to do it. I don't see any functional way that I can cross the river. Only foot troops can. These are the only guys who can slip through quickly enough. If Churchill does this to me again, I'm going to have to like make an over river assault up here. And yeah, that's how you lose Alexandria. We need their dick. Question, I'm slipping behind enemy lines, doing all this crazy shit, whatever, of whether or not, like, I want to use air power. I have to make that decision during my movement phase, because if I'm going to use air power, I have to knock out these planes. Now, one of them is better than mine. I could conduct a serious amount of fighter sweeps, try to get some bombardment in there. That would help. But I view this as kind of vainglorious. So I think my only real goal here is to look at the attrition table and see what's going to happen to me. I got a very high action rating. As long as I get a 2 through 8, I survive and I get to make the attacks, and that's all I care about. If I don't get to make them, I'm going to have to launch attacks from somewhere else. And talk about crazy, right? Like, I'm like, okay, Churchill will accept it if we go for these daring raids. But if we get word back that those raids, like, failed completely, like if the troops starved out there or whatever, be ready to cross the bridge, man. Chances are I'm going to have to do one. All right, we'll roll for this one. He survives. And then the other one. He survives. Okay. So at least we get the attacks off. Like, we don't have to destroy our army. This is how you lose the Nile. You know? Like, and it, probably not. Like, probably it would just be a massive attrition hit. Like, the combat table does not force you to retreat ever. You are always allowed to hold your ground. So as long as you have enough steps attacking or whatever, you just let yourself get mauled. But yeah, it would pretty much fuck the Commonwealth up pretty badly. So, mixed results. The lay force unit was destroyed hitting these guys, and no, they don't have to take an option, sorry. The other unit, though, successfully destroyed the headquarters. I brought this 21st Italian Corps headquarters way into there, and yeah, got wiped out. And I mean, you almost automatically surprised that it has an action rating of 0. I had to look that up because it's not printed, but and so now this is here with an exploit, and now I can go raid this air base and maybe get myself someplace like here, I don't know, and cross the river again. So it could be a relatively successful attack. This unit is going in the bag because it's got a circled thing. Let's look for the air base. I thought there was some kind of airbase capture table. Yeah, when an airbase is captured, roll 2 dice for each air unit. So he's going to have, I think, half his movement points. He's in exploit mode. Again, you know, we're all over. Half movement point. So I have 10 movement points. Half of that, I think, I can use to cross the river. So if I come here one half, 1.5 to here, we get to try to blow up these planes. No loss on the first one, no loss on the second. They're both driven away, and I don't know where the hell they can go. I think I've got airspace here, but I'm not sure. I'll look that up. So that was 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5, and 5 to cross the river. Churchill is satisfied, and it was kind of impressive, and not anywhere near as damaging as I feared it would be. I didn't move my trucks yet. Other than that, I think everything can stay the same. It was kind of impressive. You know, he sent a wire over. Hey, who's in charge right now? I don't think it's Monty yet. But who the hell knows, given how badly the Brits got pushed back. But yeah, it's something along the lines of, you know, it would be nice if you used at least those commandos I sent you. Wouldn't they be able to make some kind of audacious raid against the back areas, knock out a headquarters and an air base, cut access supplies? You know, I could have like gotten and parked. This would have been dangerous if this had been built here. I could have parked myself in that, and then been in supply off the rail net from then on. You know, I cheated. I should have an out of supply marker on me, which would have reduced my strength more. I'm not going to worry about it, because I lost the one unit at no cost, and the other one was like just hugely advantaged. But let me just see what the impact is. Oh, what the impact is. Attrition and out of supply. Out of supply effects. Out of supply units cannot attack. Ugh, fuck. Okay, well, this whole thing just couldn't have happened. Yeah, like I could have moved them and put them in reserve. Fuck me. I don't know. I'm leaving it as it is. The fucking like long-range desert raiders and SAS can't run out and do something that impressive. I don't know who can. Yeah, nobody. They did magical stuff, but I just don't feel like reversing it. And I really don't want to make attacks across the river. Like I said, I think that if Churchill orders that, like, he should be sacked as prime minister. That's all she wrote for this turn. Not really happy with any of this. It's getting kind of close to raid time. It's kind of funny in terms of raid. It's a gotcha game where you like, you know, you're supposed to spend money and whatever, but you get resources that you can summon critters with, or heroes and whatnot, and then you build them up and give them, you know, equipment and all that, and try to figure out ways of attacking stuff and doing shit. And it's actually a pretty hard one in a lot of ways. I've played a number of others like this, and I kind of prefer them to be easier. But now that like I've invested so much money, not money, I've invested some money. I think around $30. But and I did that all in like the first year, trying to convince myself to stop playing, because usually when I pay some money for something, I don't want to do it anymore for this kind of game. But that didn't work. And anyhow, I've got a shit ton of resources built up just from playing for free. And you got to kind of decide when you want to pull the trigger. Like, there's a hero available that I can guaranteed get. There are regularly ones that you can kind of guarantee that you're going to get, but this is one where I just have to spend, my summoning capabilities to just get him. But it's really expensive. Now, I'll get other stuff along with him, but I'll get that other stuff somewhere else some other time anyway. It's like when I pull the trigger on my summonings, I start getting them, and you get points for that. And in this case, the points go to towards this assured hero. And I had convinced myself I wasn't going to go for him, and for various reasons, like it would have cost me about twice as much to go for him in a really enhanced version, and that would wipe out my account more or less in terms of like being able to do anything else. And there's something else I'm expecting that I have to pay for with these resources in the very near future, which maybe I would be able to do, maybe I wouldn't. And I'm like, well, if I can't get the best version of him, I don't really want him. But I don't know. Now I'm getting convinced that, yeah, he's pretty good, and I probably want him in my bank. One of the problems is you have to develop all your champions and whatnot. That costs resources as well, different kinds. And I'm like, well, I have like this huge stockpile of champions I want to develop already. I don't need yet another one. I'm getting one, I don't know when, like tomorrow or whatever, that I'm gonna be creating. And yeah, I really, or this morning, I really don't need to have yet another okay champion. But I don't know. I've been convinced that like he's better than okay. He's not like one of the absolute gods. And by the time I develop him, the way the power creep's been going in the game, he may not be that good anymore. I've had that happen where I'm like, yeah, I put somebody on the slow burner, hoping to get around to them at some point. Then I'm like, yeah, I don't know if they're that important anymore. Like, they were my second tier that I was going to develop, and now that second tier is maybe, I'm available to expend resources on them, but it's like there's other things in that tier, and I'm like, yeah, they kind of lost some value, didn't they? I don't know. And what the hell do you care? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. But I think I'm done. This has been traumatizing, the whole situation around the river and the decisions that I have to make around it. Not the kind of thing, like, I don't mind it in a sense, like that's why you play war games, right? To make these decisions and see what the outcomes are and all that. Well, that's why I do, I guess. But it's also like, you invest so much in one of these big guys that it's very, very hard to just kind of go out on a limb and something. And then to have fucking Churchill come and stick his something up my ass, I'm not sure what. I do not feel good about that. And yeah, I mean, I lost a good unit, and I shouldn't have even been able to do that. So, I don't know. We are on another turn now. I fucked up. I forgot to fly that in. I've been remembering, but last turn was complicated. This turn, we got weather. Sandstorms on maps 2 and 3. We got an event. Rommel's training his panzers. I've got to spend a couple of supply for that. Again, he's still doing it. And Brits got initiative. They're going to force the Axis to go first. I ended up lying about not coming back. I got like 20 minutes, and the turns are moving relatively quickly. And that looks like it's a dog, perhaps shitting over there, or a very, very tiny cow. Oh, somewhere in this mess, I've lost a full SP truck. I have some, token trucks around. I have a 2 SP truck around. Somewhere or another, I have a full SP truck. I don't know where the fuck it is, and I can't find it. That is something that you can't just have disappear. Trucks are too fucking important in this game to let one just disappear like that. So I'm looking around, and I don't know where I've buried it. And when I say disappeared, I mean, if it's not hauling goods, it's disappeared, tracked it down. It was hiding under an Italian headquarters. One that I really actually kind of don't need. Do I want to motorize that guy and shift him down? Since I'm pulling supplies here, I'm afraid to, right? I'm afraid to move my planes in there. I'm afraid to do anything that attack by the SAS was just too scary, because I don't have the forces to block him from moving across. And I also don't have, maybe I have something excess I could throw into those hexes, but I also don't have the forces to garrison the locations that I need to be in. Now this is kind of, it's not really blocking it. He could run up this way. I mean, it's just, I can't garrison everything, right? You would think my forces sitting out here would be safe, but this is the danger. Why, if you don't devote garrisons and just leave them in place, you're going to run into problems. So I'm going to look around, see if I can get any little forces, at least to garrison the dump. Nothing tiny I could commit, so I pulled part of 15th Panzer, an anti-aircraft unit to hold that. I could have held back maybe an artillery somewhere, but I don't know. I really don't know if anything was in range. I could have pulled this machine gun unit. That might be even better. I don't know. Let's leave the quality there, whatever. But yeah, until I have that resolved, I got a problem. Of course, it wasn't really a problem because he actually couldn't raid without, he couldn't make an attack. Well, he could attack a dump. He doesn't have to be in supply to attack the dump. So yeah, we have to garrison that. The other stuff I'm okay with, I guess. And that'll put me on the British turn. This is becoming a headache. High Command says send another brigade off to the far east. And that gets us to here, where we get some more trucks that we don't need. I mean, really. Those are British trucks. I do not need them. I'm not even shipping all my goods anymore. I'm just I got enough stockpiled up. I kind of don't want more there. Not yet. But, I could drop something off. I'll ship something by rail back to here, because why not? But I don't want to count all the movement and all that. Doesn't matter that it's, the sandstorms aren't over here, but I just don't care enough. So that'll be it. Okay, back to no weather. Axis got initiative. They're going to force the Commonwealth to go first. And Rommel's training his panzers again. I paid in advance because, honestly, trying to remember an event, given that the Brits are going to have to go first, throughout, is a real easy recipe for forgetting to apply it. What's that? Just a leaf? I hope so. Anyway, it's well, it's like Wednesday morning. My back is making it so I can't really sleep. I'm kind of playing with the idea of going shopping. I mean, not out of food. I usually wait until things are getting kind of desperate. It would be useful. And you'd say, well, what about your back, man? Actually, pulling the cart up the hill helps my back. I also hang off that pull-up bar sometimes when my back hurts. But, you know, I mean, I can do that for 20 seconds or so, and then I get bored, you know? It's just like I can stretch a little bit, and then I'm like, go do something else. Anyway, we'll start. Things have sort of tempered into I don't know what the hell's going to happen. The only real excitement was when I had to send these guys out illicitly, and when I did that, you know, I mean, I guess what I really should have been doing was launching those attacks across the river, busting up the Commonwealth Army, etc. This seemed like a way to get around it. Turns out I was feeding too bad. Actually get to the tedium of moving pieces. There is something to consider, which I haven't done all game, which is, look, I could bomb ports using air power. Neither side has air superiority. They could fight for air superiority over that matter. Seems kind of risky, right? I mean, for either side to try to make an issue of that. And let's look at what the effects would be. If I bombed this, it would kind of suck. I could get, you know, the incoming troops to be a much lower value than it currently is. Honestly, it would, to a large extent, it would just delay time, because I've still got two supply here, two supply here, full points. And I've kind of been ignoring the fact that there's actually a port cap in Alexandria, and probably brought in troops that should have stayed in the world holding box or been brought in somewhere else. The troops that get brought in at either Suez or Port Said, though, I can use the Delta rail network. So, you know, at worst, it's kind of a turn's delay, probably. There's not ever a huge flow of troops, although there could be with returns. For the Axis, to do what, man? First of all, these guys don't have any reduction. I could reduce Tobruk, but Tobruk's only taking like 2 tokens a turn. And that's assuming the Brits are aware of that, right? Like, plus, that's quite a ways away. There'd be a limited amount of planes I could use to do that. So I'm just not paying any attention to it at all. I think it comes in more important when you've got something like the Siege of Tobruk going on, where, yeah, you want to make sure that the resources to keep the siege going don't make it there. Brits, they had to withdraw another brigade to the Far East. So some South Africans went, but I got another manpower, another packs, and that got me up to 5. So I've got enough manpower reserves to build a headquarters. I just need another equipment. So I used 2 of those to build myself a brigade to replace one of the 9th Australians, which are really good. And the South Africans are off training in the Far East mainly. And then, you know, I'm done shipping supplies for the most part. So I'm just gonna ship a smaller amount of supplies forward than I have been, and work less with the trucks, I think. I don't know. I mean, if I'm gonna launch an attack, I kind of need to build up dumps. so maybe I better. And for the Axis, nothing too exciting. Had to play hunt for the trucks again. The weather made them end up in places that were kind of weird. But also the fact that I'm building up this stockpile here. I got to leave the garrison there. I would love to move that forward. But what happened is too likely for something like that to happen again. Seizing a supply dump is a way that the unit could operate. So yeah, your supply dumps, you absolutely need to support. This other stuff like the airport and things like that, yeah, I'd like to. I have a couple of those Oasis units, which I've seen as kind of useless because, yeah, I don't want to be in the Oasis. But they work just fine as like dump guards and stuff like that. So I can use them as garrisons, and that's just fine. As I've mentioned in the game, there's absolutely no reason to be doing anything, I think, beyond a certain point on the board. There's no victory point value to any of these. There's only one place that's one of these oases that's controlled by the Brits anyway, and they have Egyptian troops there. For me to get that, I would have to get some kind of headquarters. Well, actually, first of all, I would have to trace my supply from back here. So I could push forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the limit of my trace supply right now. If I dropped a headquarters there, I can almost make it to Siwa. Almost. I don't think things look any better going this way. This looks like a more direct route. But that's the best I can do for supply, right? So what I have to do is living off the land, which means I'd have to transport supplies down there. And then I just have to kind of hope this is likely to change over to be pro-Axis. But if it doesn't, having to fight it, I'd have to get additional supplies down there for that. It would basically be a fair amount of effort, and there is absolutely no payoff for it. The only payoff is if the Brits decide they want to retake take these oases, they should. They would have to go through the same kind of effort to do it. But there's just no value to them whatsoever. And I just feel like, from about here, this road might be useful. Cut down to the Katara Depression here to about here. The map is just like, it's wasted stuff, and that's why I got rule books on it and everything like that. All the play is happening on the coast, or pretty close to it, until we get to there. It's pretty disheartening, though, to be playing something like this when I feel like there is absolutely no opportunity for a breakout anymore. We'll see. We'll see. Like I said, I thought about some things down here. But I'm growing disillusioned with that idea. And then in terms of a breakout for the Axis, the only thing that can happen is Churchill can basically order suicide attacks. So what I'm doing to make up the time, I could be playing Raid, right? But Raid is a limited resource game. If I end up spending everything that I have, I'll regret that later. And right now the payoffs there, I've done what I want to do, and the payoffs there are not worth chasing, I think, right now. There's something cool, but it's like a tournament where you have to come in first in your group. I don't think I can possibly do that. So what I've been doing is playing like a really old school, stupid RPG type thing, where I like fight a monster. Yeah, it's, you know, an overhead map type of view of things. But I like fight a monster, and it's really weak. I'm like first level in it, and then I have to go and build a camp and rest to survive, you know, so that I can fight the next monster. And we're not talking bosses or anything here. We're talking the weak monsters that, you know, you would think you'd be able to knock out with a single blow or something. I think I set up my character poorly. Oh, the next turn is a mess. Sandstorms everywhere, which means nothing could happen. By the way, that can create a pathological condition in the game, but I'll get to that in a moment. And the Allies, the Commonwealth gets initiative. They're going to force the Axis to go first for whatever that's worth. Okay, so the pathological condition is, what if you get a required attack and you can't possibly attack it? It's not actually covered in the rules, but you know, if this were like a really, really nailed down, you know, easy light game, I might just say, we've reached a point where the game cannot continue, you know. But obviously, look, this is not along that lines, and you've got to do something about it. Wow, pulled into that driveway, getting damn close to hitting the enemy car, neighbor's car, not enemy. Just because they have territory now essentially adjoining mine. There's a barrier, a roadway, whatever. But it does not make them the enemy. Yeah, I mean, look, you have to be willing to resolve issues like that in this thing. Now, the question is, actually, I don't know. What if it had come out? What if Churchill? So that's not a common effect, is it? Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah. There's an attempt at an attack is okay and is counted as one of the attacks if the opponent is able to withdraw from the area, whatever. If you set it up, you know. Again, not really all that specified, but in this case, there would be no possibility of an attack. All right. Anyway, wasted enough words there. I'm playing again, not because I'm excited to be playing, but because it is sort of the least miserable option other than just going back to sleep, which I'm probably going to do after this turn. I really wasn't enjoying it. I tried playing that role-playing thing, video game role-playing, and first of all, it's really obnoxious. The control for it is horrible, but it's just, you know, I'm like, I kill one monster, two monsters, whatever, and then I have to rest, and I'm diseased now because in an attempt to try to avoid, like, in an attempt to try to rest at one point, I ran down into a dungeon that I had cleared and slept there, and apparently that's a way you get disease. Now, it doesn't give me any warning about that or anything. The game came out in like 2006 or something, and it looks like it could have come out in 1990 as far as I'm concerned. With this much weather everywhere, it's easier because I can just double the calculations when I'm using the chart. But when I'm not using the chart, like when I'm shipping materials down to here, I'm having to count, you know, 3 hexes on the highway counts as 2 movement points, and I've got 45 movement points on the units. That's a pain in the ass. I really, it's one of the things I don't like in Desert Fox as well, is the huge movement allowances. Just because of the amount of time that turns are compared to the amount of space that the game represents and whatnot. It can be really, really painful how far you fly across the map in sort of one action. I don't know. And I've got, moving the trucks around. I haven't finished the axis turn, but I've got these I'm continuing to leave armored units just behind. That's not a bad unit. I might want to move it to the front, but I don't think I want to. These other ones, some of them are motorized or whatever. I've left their strategic movement marker on them, even though they're not strategic moving this turn, simply because that's what I want to do with them. I'm not convinced with him. Although, he's not a bad unit. It's just like, do I really want to spend the resources to move him? If my line ends up breaking, I'm going to have to spend those resources to move him back if he is still there. And that's kind of, he's not a bad unit, so I don't mind with him. But then I've got shit like this. And it's basically garrison quality stuff. I want it on the board, which is why I spent, Tripoli supplies to get it there. But I don't particularly want to spend to move it to the front. And it's not very fast either. I don't know what the hell it is. They're Imperial Guard. It's like, I really don't know what they are. They might be some kind of motorized garrison or something, but that's tracked movement. Jesus. Does it tell me? Does it tell me in here? I really doubt it, because there's all kind of special unit types in here. They don't here, and I really doubt, they don't specify here either. And in the reinforcements, these guys must have just come in. They're going to be in the Italian side. Am I out of battery yet? I know it's going to die very soon. I think they just call them IGs. Yeah, they're IG companies. Great. I don't know what they are. Again, if somebody lets me know, that'd be cool, but I got no idea what a fucking IG company is. All right, got to swap batteries. Do some more shipping, do the British turn, but nothing's going to fucking happen this turn. So one thing sort of happened. The Brits got some Indian troops back. I don't want to use up the manpower, although do I get manpower no matter what? If I get equipment, I get manpower no matter what, so I can rebuild that unit. But yeah, and I consolidated all my trucks in one place, did less movement with them because I really don't care. I'm just sure, maybe I want to get more stuff to hell on, but it's not worth the extra counting. I don't have, I don't know. And by consolidating them all now, I can ship three full strength supply points at a time. Technically, I think I should be rolling for this. There's an Egyptian unit under there. I think I should have rolled to see if it switched sides. Here's the problem. If it switches sides, it had no way to get across the river. So I just don't feel like they've been given the opportunity to make that choice yet. So unless the axis crosses the river, or there's an opening that allows them to cross, I just don't see them saying, yeah, we are for independent Egypt, and having absolutely nowhere to go to. That would feel pretty lousy. So I don't feel like they can make the check. Sandstorms persist, not over the whole map, but over 2 and 3, which is going to be a pain in the ass for Axis transport. And Axis wins the initiative and ends up forcing the Brits to go first. We'll see what happens. And kind of flew through that turn. It's just, there's kind of this funny dualism, right? When turns are complex and hard, things are more exciting, but it's also fatiguing to play the turns, right? And this is the case with any game, right? When turns are really, really simple and there's not much going on, it's so boring, it's hard to motivate yourself to play. I'm going to force myself to play another turn, but, you know, I mean, all that's happening is I'm just schlepping supplies back and forth. If it weren't for this sort of hint that maybe I can make a crossing here and launch an attack and attempt that, I would be cleaning this up and heading towards something else. Even though I'm only about halfway through the time of the game, I just don't see, I don't see making the river crossings opposed. And so I'm just building up, and meanwhile the Axis is building up its own defenses, beginning to move, you know, nothing that costs anything, so I've been continuously moving, but moving things like the Oasis garrisons, I'm planning on putting them to cover the river crossings and stuff like that. I moved my headquarters, the Italian headquarters up. It's somewhat at risk, you know. That SAS unit can march in and attack it. But I just, I can't justify this existence of this dump without putting a headquarters up there. We'll see. All right, well now there's sandstorms everywhere except the third map, map C. Brits got the initiative this time. They swapped things out. That means during the during the Axis turn, they'll fire their artillery. That has been monumentally ineffective. I mean, I've caused a couple of step losses, but that's all it's doing, is a tiny bit of attrition, and it costs me nothing because I have infinite supplies right now. Never mind about that British artillery, it's not firing, there's a sandstorm here. There's none here, there's no fighting there. That did make things a little complicated. The Axis had to calculate movement basically to Mersa Matrua manually, then do automated to Bardia or whatever, and then from Bardia to Tobruk, I charge double cost, even though it's clear for part of this fuck up, or anywhere beyond, you know. So basically, just the Mersa Matrua to Bardia, it cost myself a couple movement points. Who cares? I haven't done my shipping yet. What happens with the damn shipping is that, and this is part of why the chart is so annoying, right? Because it changes, but by the time you get towards the end of a month, you get used to, hey, look, I've got 3 points of shipping. I can ship 1.5 to Benghazi. That cost me 1. Still cost me 1.5 things. And then that means I have 2 more points left. And this is a token each, 2 tokens each. That leaves me 2 remaining tokens to go over there. Okay, that's great. But then it shifts to 1 point or whatever. And then all I can do is ship to Benghazi. What are we hitting? Yeah, we're going to be in 1 point of coastal shipping for a long time. The coastal shipping gets cut way down after this. It'll be in May, it gets a little better. Feels to me like that's not all weather dependent, that a lot of that is you know, if you're going to have little charts that allow you to determine, you know, the effects of the Greek campaign and all that, and the withdrawals and all kind of stuff like that, well, maybe the impact of the shipping should be similarly a chart type thing that, you know, I don't know. I'm just I don't know if that would help me or not in any way, but what it would do is it would add some more variable aspects to the campaign. There's a lot of it already that's very variable, but, you know, and it's not like the supply comes in just according to this. You still have to roll on this, and you have levers to play with and everything. Anyway, let me do the Brits. It probably won't come back. I don't know. I could get through the damn month and load this one up. You know, there's just nothing fucking going on. One tiny thing happened. I'm going to have a withdrawal or a removal or something there. the Brits got the last of their Near East brigades back and into play. And you know what? I mean, we might as well finish this up. It's almost raid time, but I don't have a lot of resources, so I'm not pressured to start, to play right away or anything. Okay, we've got the most annoying weather possible. Allies get the initiative. They're not going to be able to bombard again because the weather is every other map. Sandstorm, clear. Sandstorm, clear. Sandstorm. Boy, that's going to be obnoxious. I mean, the Brits don't care. They're like, well, we're under sandstorm. We'll do whatever we do with sandstorm, which, less work than I would normally do because I'm like, well, I don't want to ship as much material. I still do, a round trip or whatever, but I'm like, the weather's bad. Let's just sit in. Over on the event side, we got something that kind of surprised me. Allies crack Luftwaffe codes. This happens, and all Axis Malta table rolls and results must be made in public so both sides can see the results. I didn't realize that they weren't supposed to be made in public. I haven't really been using that information. I think knowing the information, like knowing that I know it, isn't going to impact me either. I don't know. Well, I don't know what's here. I'm not allowed to paw through the points there. So, yeah. It's depleting pretty badly, though. But it doesn't have any real impact. Just knowing what the shipment rate is, I kind of feel like that's not just a matter of ultra. You kind of feel like that's a matter of, well, how much did we blow up? Especially since I know this, but this could be an abstraction and whatever. I mean, it certainly is. But what I'm saying is, it feels funny that, I know what that is. So I know what the base shipping is. I know what the modifiers are. So I have a pretty good idea of what the shipping is. And I don't think I'm going to get much more than a pretty good idea by knowing the die rolls. It feels like a pretty pointless event. Okay, I move Axis units again, and it's going to be a real fucking headache because of the weather just being striped. I had kind of a treat on my last cup of tea. I'm taking a pause in between. I moved all the units. Now I have to do the trucks, which is going to be mentally taxing, but less things total. I may have said this before, but it's so clever an idea. It's the kind of brilliance that I truly have. But it really is adds a lot to my life. I brew a cup of, I brew tea constantly. And when, I've always got my cup here. If I'm not drinking coffee, it's tea. And the coffee's never in those mugs. But when I finish a jelly jar, jam, preserves, whatever, you can't get everything out of one of those. And I end up putting my tea, brewing my tea inside the jelly jar, right once I've finished it. It's sort of a treat that happens very seldomly, but I really noticed that, I had such a tasty tea. Now I've got, I've got some herbals and stuff like that have nice flavors and everything, but it's just different. I gotta go. I don't end up buying something like, an actual tea, like blackberry flavored tea or something like that. You could see doing it, but, my big addiction is with the Earl Grey. And now that I can get the one that I like, at least I was able to a few weeks ago, at my supermarket in quantities that are a little cheaper, I look at it, a little over 10 cents a bag I can deal with for fancy tea. Yeah. Oh. But when I'm going with my cheap tea, Jesus, it's gotten it's gotten a lot more, hasn't it? Yeah, it's still cheap. It's still cheap as hell. So like the store brand tea is like under 4 cents a bag. My I don't remember, Tetley or whatever that I get is a little bit more expensive, but I get 2 full mugs out of it. One's a little weaker. I don't pull the tea bag out or anything like that. Sometimes it's in overnight and my first cup's real strong and the second one's real weak. Sometimes it's like today and my tea's still warm. Anyway, I don't know why I'm doing this to you, but it's the kind of tangents we like to do. That's obnoxious. The removal, and I thought it was as soon as I saw this, is the 18th Infantry Cavalry Battalion. Now, I look all over the map, over there, finally go to the bag. The bag's actually easier to look at than anything else, so when I suspect it's in the bag, that's where I should go. And yep, it is a cannot be replaced unit that, I moved instead of keeping it in the dead pile, which would actually be harder to deal with, right? Like, but I do search there first because spilling out the bag has a certain cost to it, and I'm like, I might just get lucky and find it. I don't think these should be removed. Like, I really just don't think they should. I've got real problems with a lot of the removal stuff and withdrawals, and I've gone into a lot of it before. In this particular case, though, the reason I don't like this being removed is, look, it's going to die anyway. So again, you're going to be forced to make decisions. Like, if you knew that, you would make different decisions, which was the core problem with some of the others as well. In addition to it just being a fucking pain in the ass. But, you know, this unit just doesn't make that much difference. If you didn't get it killed yet, just leave it on the map. It'll get killed eventually, you know? And somehow it's got motorized horses. The only other thing the Brits did, they had that unit that got returned from the Near East, got sent out to the Mid East. Now, this is nice. That is the last unit of any kind that I have to withdraw to the Mid East, until and unless something returns from there. But right now it means nothing else is going to get sucked into there. And let's take a look at the chart for a moment. Right now, we're going several months of this. The most likely withdrawals, let's see, 1, 2, 3 numbers there. Yeah, Far East is pretty big. Near East is about equivalent to the Mid East, so it's not really that big a deal. But we're also essentially unlikely to get anything back. It's just a 1 in 36 chance that we'll get something back from the Far East. The Mid East, nothing can come back from. Is that right? Yeah, the Mid East, nothing ever comes back from the Mid East. Wow, that blows chunks. Okay, well, those units are permanently withdrawn there. Interesting. Not what I was expecting. Okay. And otherwise, I did, my sort of minimal transport, which is something like 4 SP into Helwan. That is going to put us at the end of the month. I'll move this to there so that I know I have to do my setup type stuff. And there we is.